Apart from trying to avoid back-to-back Stephen King, trust me, he will be coming back this year as it's kind of inevitable, I also like looking at modern horror adaptations. This is twofold, as the internet has done the 80s and 90s to death, but also because there are some genuinely original and fantastic IPs that have yet to get the spotlight they deserve. The most recent example of this is The Ruins, which is a horror one-hit wonder. Yeah, he did other things, but this was his only horror novel, and that's a cool and original piece. The Ritual wasn't one of those immediate releases where the book was churned into a movie before the book itself had time to cook, and it is the only mainstream adaptation from the very UK author's works. While the movie did extremely well on Netflix, and the book is seen as a modern classic, how well did the motion picture follow the book? Keep track of your friends while camping as we find out what happened to this adaptation. The Ritual, simple name and all, came out at TIFF, or the Toronto International Film Festival, in September of 2017, before being released in the UK the following month. While it only made $1.6 million in its theatrical release, it was a huge hit on Netflix, which is one of its distributors. The movie was written by Joe Barton based on the novel by Adam Neville and directed by David Bruckner. Barton has stayed mostly in the realm of TV writing and has multiple projects still to come. The director is David Bruckner, one of the few Americans on the project, and also firmly one of our guys. He started off with directing the 2007 horror movie The Signal and has stayed in our favorite genre since then. He has written, produced, and directed several segments throughout the VHS series and was part of the underrated anthology movie Southbound. From there, he would go on to do a couple of episodes of the Creepshow revival, namely segments in episodes 3 and 4 from the first season, as well as The Night House. In 2022, he was the director who finally brought to life the long-dormant and delayed Hellraiser remake/reboot, and that was certainly no small task as that movie had so many expectations behind it. The actors in The Ritual are Rafe Spall, Arsher Ali, Robert James Collier, Sam Troughton, and Paul Reed in the main roles. Spall is the focal point for a couple reasons in the movie, and probably the most recognizable out of the main cast. I first noticed him in Edgar Wright's Coronado trilogy in various roles, and even though I don't remember seeing him, he also shows up in the fantastic Grindhouse trailer Wright made called Don't. In addition to that, he's also appeared in Prometheus, an episode of Black Mirror, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, amongst many others. Ali's been around for a while, and you've probably seen him in many TV series he's appeared in over the years. Troughton had the privilege to be killed off in Alien vs. Predator, but has also been in super high-profile things like Chernobyl and Mank. Robert James Collier brings with him that Downton Abbey prestige and has also worked in tons of other TV shows. And finally, Paul Reed follows suit with many TV series, but not much else I recognize. It works really well together as they're all good actors and come across as friends naturally on screen. When it was bought by Netflix for $4.75 million, there were articles talking about it, but it didn't have as much hype behind it until it started streaming on the platform. It was received well by both critics and fans with an above-average rating from both sides of the coin.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our Joblo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
When The Ritual was released in 2011, it was author Adam Neville's third book, following 2004's Banquet for the Dead and 2010's The Apartment. This would be his biggest hit and get global attention, but not his last to be made into a film. Neville started his professional career as an editor before deciding to become a writer full-time. In addition to his 12 novels, including one from this year called All the Fiends of Hell, he's also contributed to 5 collections and 20 short stories. While Ritual came out in 2011 in the UK and 2012 in the US, it didn't get its movie adaptation for over 5 years. That would be only one of 2 books to make it to the big screen, with the other being No One Gets Out Alive, which is a much looser adaptation of the source material. Other works that have had their rights purchased but haven't been made into films yet include his 2012 book Last Days and his 2010 novel The Apartment. While he started out like most authors using a third-party publishing company, he has since switched to self-publishing for financial reasons, but also the freedom that comes with being able to put out whatever content you want. Reviews for the novel of The Ritual were mostly positive, with critics calling Neville an effortless writer in the best kind of way, and what he can tell is a great story with believable characters. The Ritual, as well as many of his other works, actually won awards such as the August Derleth Award for Best Horror Novel. It's a nice note that his publishing company is named Ritual Limited, presumably named after his most famous and beloved work. The story of The Ritual is remarkably close. It involves 4 friends taking a hiking camping trip into the Swedish mountains. The 4 friends are named Dom, Phil, Luke, and Hutch, and they all went to school, or university for those who refer to it that way, together. One of them injures their leg, and so the group decides to head through the forest rather than continue the terrain of the mountains. They encounter a brutally desecrated animal and get kind of lost in the woods before finding some shelter. The group has bad dreams while staying in the shelter, and Hutch is the first to be taken away by an unseen force or creature. The group searches for him, but is unable to find any trace at first before being horrified in the discovery of his hung and disemboweled corpse on a tree. Phil is next to disappear, and it seems as though the group is being hunted by someone or something. Dom and Luke are captured by a woodland cult, and Dom is killed next, with only Luke remaining. The entire time, Luke is the odd man out, and the group in the village that captured him decides to save him for last to be sacrificed. Luke learns that the creature hunting him and killing his friends is called Moder, or Mother, and a village woman is set on sacrificing him for her own gain. Luke escapes and puts an end to the cult, but not quite the monster, by killing everyone he can and damaging Mother while escaping back out into the forest. He makes it out and is thrilled to be alive, even if he's been driven a little bit crazy by the death of his friends and the rest of the ordeal. Nuance, nuance, nuance. The meat and potatoes of the story are the same, and even the characters' names and ending all end up being what you get whether you read the book or watch the movie. The difference is how they get there and what the motivations are. In the book, the characters are almost there as a favor to Luke, or in spite of him, kind of like an intervention almost. He hasn't done anything with his life, and the rest of them are all married and settled down. Even though 2 of the men are on the road to divorce, they still made a go of it and did something with their lives. The trek through the forest is different as well. In the movie, they find a cabin with an effigy of what they will encounter later, while the crew in the book find an actual church and remains of both humans and animals. The other big change, and one that works out really well, is why some of the group is mad at Luke. In the book, they just need him to grow up, and as I said, the trip is kind of a last-ditch effort or an intervention. The movie opens up with an entirely different preamble where the same group of friends are drinking in a pub and discussing their upcoming trip when Luke and Rob, who is not in the book, go to a liquor store to get more booze. A robbery happens, and while Luke hides in fear, Rob is messed with and eventually killed. This is what the friends are upset at more in the movie, and they blame Luke for the death of their friend as he could have done more to help or even prevent the killing. The creature in the film creates a bunch of nightmare scenarios that force Luke to relive portions of that night and confront his feelings and the ghost of Rob that lives in his mind. The last change is to the cult and the number of followers, as well as how important they are to the story. The novel goes into more detail with things like putting them in a band together and having more personalities and interactions. They're also kind of the villains of the book, along with Mother. The legacy of the book and its author are set in stone. The author's work will continue to be made into movies or TV shows, and Neville will continue to write on his self-created publishing house named after today's work. The book and movie both tell a similar story with different details. Do you prefer guilt motivations in your characters? The movie has you covered. Is your thing more related to laziness and arrested development of a character? Then the book has that in spades. I do think the imagery presented in the book, along with the further development of the lore of the cult, make it more compelling. But the movie is a really good watch, and more importantly, a non-sequel or remake, which is always refreshing in our favorite genre. While I give the edge to the book, I say check both of them out when you need a good ritualistic pairing.